So today we're going to have the opportunity to interview a mentor of mine in Coach and President Jim Tressel. And I think first I'd like to start out with the background on how even all of this came about. So, years ago when I was starting, this was almost over 5 years ago, I think now, I was trying to start help to bring inspiring minds to Youngstown. And one of the things that got in my mind and in my vision for whatever reason was to host a first fundraiser, and I wanted to have Jim Tressel. I just didn't know how it was going to happen. And I remember Mr. Lucarell saying that he would, and so Mr. Lucarell ends up being a longtime friend of mine who was somebody that when I was in high school would kind of help me take me under his wing, and we've always stayed in touch. He mentioned he may be able to get me together with you, and what I ended up doing was just getting dropped off at Youngstown State one day. So I had Keelan Logan, I think, drive me. I got dropped off to where I thought your office was, and I knocked on the door and I asked for 5 minutes, and I surprisingly lets me in, and I think you had these rings or something was over there with the rings, and when we sat down, he gives me over 45 minutes, and so I asked him to speak, and he says, let me check with my bride and see what's going on, and he said, well, I'll let you know next week. And I'm thinking, I'm not expecting it to happen, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Saturday, I remember you texted me and said he checked out one of the videos and said he would do it, and he was down to he would do it. So we opened up with that, and little did he know that I was going to latch on and not let go, and so that I asked him to mentor me. And again, not expecting to get a yes answer. You were driving back from, I was sitting in my office at my house, and you were driving back from meeting somebody politically. Something was going on with the Senate or something in Ohio, something with the government. And you were driving home, and you called me back, and I asked you to do it. I said, if it's not you, maybe you could give me somebody, because at that point of my life, I could attribute a lot of my success. I could connect them back towards having the right mentors. Fortunately, or unfortunately, I hit a point where I started to look around, and there wasn't really anybody that was further along than me or had won more than me that I can ask from, because I was in my circle from my business and some people that I've met there. And so it's not that I couldn't gain wisdom from other people, because I do all the time. But I didn't have a consistent source of somebody in leadership to help to navigate me and allow me to pick their brain. And so he said that he would. And so we start to meet, and I think it's ironic, as I roll into some of the questions, you've won everywhere you go, so you get to win at Youngstown, and, within a couple years, you're winning already at Ohio State. I mean, you're at a major level. And then you win again as a president of a university, and you've just changed gears so many times and find a way to win. And I think it's ironic, for me, that over the last couple years you start to spend time with me, and we were winning, but all of a sudden we're winning at a higher level. And for our company, we won Agency of the Year last year, which is very difficult to do. It's almost like winning a national championship. Again, after you've done it before, and the longer you're around, the harder it is to do, because you're playing against some crazy numbers. And we won it all, last year, and we've been growing at a pace that we hadn't grown in years. And I think a lot of that has to do with the time that you spend with me, and help to guide me and other people more than you think. So
when you knocked on my door, I wasn't going to make the same mistake again. When I didn't recruit you to play for me, and you went on and did great things, you make mistakes. I didn't end up having you playing for me back in the day, so I wasn't going to make that mistake a second time. That's why I answered the door.
Love it. So let's roll into some of the questions, and thank you. So I want to start off with your dad. as I've spoken to you and read, some of the book that you put out, I start to see a lot of what I read about in your dad and then your mom, with the heart that it seems like she has, that you've explained in the books that I've read and stuff. So, I would say maybe what sticks out, being a son of a coach, because your coach was, I say son of a gun, you're a son of a coach. And so what did you grab from your dad, and where did he coach, and then maybe a little something from your mom?
All of us were blessed to have great parents. You talk all the time, you can't pick your parents, but you can make decisions beyond that and so forth. When you're blessed like I was to have parents like I did, shame on me if I didn't pay attention. If I didn't listen, if I didn't really try to assess the impact they were having. We lived on campus when I was growing up. My dad was the head coach at Baldwin Wallace College for 23 years. When I was born, he was the head coach at Mentor High School in Ohio. Had 34 straight wins going. Left and became the head coach at Massillon High School, which back in those days, that was a big deal.
You're born that's Massillon's, where when you're born as a boy they give you football.
Give you a football. That's right.
How's
at
that
the
for
hospital.
culture?
That's right.
Yeah.
And then he went back to his alma mater, which was Baldwin Wallace College. And so really from the time I was 5 all the way through college, we lived on campus. They didn't pay small college coaches very much, but they did give them a home. And our home was next to the stadium. So, we always talk about that balance, trying to make sure we do a good job as a husband, a parent, but still have that passion to win.
Mm-hmm.
He got to do all that with us next door. And so I got to watch everything. And what really struck me was the impact that he had on his student athletes and really all the students at the university. He was the athletic director. He was the head of the health and physical education department. It was an amazing impact. You could just see it. And then my mom was that times 10. She was not the coach of anything, no title whatsoever, but she was extraordinary. Every day she woke up, she's going to serve somebody.
Serving people.
It didn't matter. The answer was always yes. If they called Eloise, the answer was yes. She would help. And so when you get a chance to see that, you've got an advantage. You've got a head start. Now, one of the things that I really deal with in my mind right now is, as I look at our society and so forth, there are some who have that great advantage, and there are many that don't. And we've got to be there for both. We've got to keep those that have that advantage with the proper perspective, and those that don't have that advantage, we have to come up with a way to help them learn what impact they can have, what it's going to take to realize their dreams, what life is all about. And that's why I've loved this chapter of being in education, because I was in football for 38 years, and just focused.
I'm going to just jump the gun. That was one of the things I was going to ask you. Is what things do you think you brought with you, transitioning over from winning as a football coach to being a coach of a university? They call it the president.
Sure.
And so, what things coincide to winning?
Well, if you're going to be successful, I believe it begins with relationships. Relationships with your people, the relationships with your customers, the relationships with your community. Life is about relationships, especially if you're going to be impactful. The same is true as a coach and a president. Also, life is about learning. And I was going into a new arena. Now, granted, I had been in higher education for 38 years in a very myopic area. I was somewhat aware of the whole, but not, I was certainly no expert on the whole. And so that passion to learn about what's important to everyone, all of your colleges, all of your faculty, all of your students, moving away from your, small interest. I think that gives you a chance if you learn and learn and learn and relearn. And so if you take those relationship skills, if you take that communication skill, which I always say the number one trait of a good communicator is they're a great listener. They're an intentional listener. Some people you're talking with them and, they may pretend that they're listening, but they're peeking out to see who else is around, or in their mind they're thinking about something else. Intentional listening is exhausting. We always talk about greatness is exhausting. Well, to me, those are the two biggest things. And then I guess the third one would be I've been fortunate both in my coaching life and I'm trying to develop in this new career of having great people around you and developing them and being there for them, knowing what is important to them.
When you say developing them, what would you say are some techniques or strategies to develop people? Because it's one thing to have the people and recruit the people, and then if it's in sports, but then it's another thing to develop them.
Right.
And I think you'll see programs that get a lot of talent. Sometimes they can't win. I would have to assume that one of the things that maybe they're missing is developing. Because I know from a leadership standpoint in business, I've watched that it's not just attracting talent, but you have to be able to develop that talent for what it is that they're looking to do. So, any strategies from, you say we have to develop the people. Well, what do you do to develop people?
Well, you and I have talked a lot about the fact that what's critical in your development of people is understanding what they're thinking, understanding what's important to them, understand why they're heading in the direction they're heading strategically and in their own development of their people and so forth. We used to have a little acronym, WAYT. What are you thinking? I really want to know what you're thinking. Mm-hmm. And having as many opportunities as you can to listen. We talk about our surveys and we talk about meetings for hours and hours and hours because we want to know what our people are thinking. I think anytime you get together and you have those conversations or those exercises of writing what you're thinking or whatever, two things can happen, and both of them are good. One is you can get some great ideas. The people you're working with, my players gave me the best ideas. My students now at Youngstown State, I have a group called the Presidential Mentors, and once a month they mentor me. 30 people, all grade levels, all majors, all ethnicities, all preferences, you name it. Mm-hmm. And I want to hear what they're thinking. So the first thing that can happen when you get together like that is you come up with great ideas. And the second thing, which may be equally as important, is you can clarify why it is this is the plan. I used to tell my guys all the time, I know you go back to the dorm after practice or after a workout and talk in the dorm like, I can't believe we're not doing lunges, or I can't believe we're not blitzing more, or I can't. They're always talking and they're always studying the game because they love it. So I want to know what they're thinking. Are they back there saying, I don't know why we're doing this? I want you to say to me, why are we doing this?
You want to know.
I want to know.
So and that's one of the big ones that I've gotten from you is trying to create an environment to where I'm always asking for people's opinion and not allowing myself to get offended or to feel like I have to come up with all the ideas without creating buy-in, from others, which comes from listening, to these people. So it's, I think that takes a level of humility, when you say to ask them to mentor you. I think that's probably
we used to always want to be able to say at the end of the day when we had the plan made and we were going to go forward is, hey, this is our plan. Hey, this was your idea. This wasn't my idea. I love the idea.
Let them create the idea with you.
And the buy-in, if there is ownership in the plan, is extraordinary. And I think that is one of the critical. There's a lot of ways you can develop. I mean, just like you do, I'm sure. You assign reading. You do. You push them. I've always felt, or maybe have grown to believe, that one of the key components of leadership is to help people understand what it's going to take for them to reach their dreams. That's critical. So often guys
So
would come in.
how do you go about that?
Well, let's just take the football side of things. All my guys at Ohio State came in, and they were going to go to the NFL. That's what they were. So my job is to say, that's a very few. Here's what it takes. Let's study the people who have been successful at that. What do they look like? How fast are they? How many reps on the 225 did they do? What's their shuttle run? What's their film look like? What kind of team guy are they? What's their production at their position, etc.? And put that out in front of them, because the worst thing I think we could do is say, oh, that's what you'd like to do, and then let them try to figure it out on their own.
Right. So you find what it is that they really say that they want, what they say that they want, and then you go back and create a way to communicate clearly what it's going to take to achieve what they want.
Right.
And then you should be able to hopefully either decide at that point they want to pursue that type of greatness or they don't. And if they do, then you can hold them accountable to the vision.
In all the phases of their life, because they have dreams other than the ones that are professional.
Absolutely.
And that's so critical.
That's what you do with the Block O.
That was our Block O at Ohio State, our Wheel of Life at Youngstown State. I mean, it wasn't a 1AA, 1A thing. It was a real life thing. But it began with them saying what they were interested in those areas, and then helping them create the plan for how do we accomplish that.
Yeah.
Short range, but also their dreams. What are you dreaming about? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. So that was, for people that haven't seen it, what you're talking about, the Wheel of Success or the Block O. It's I created it for the agency, and I have it all written down. I have them do it at the end of the year, going into the next year. And then I even did it with my wife. So in my office and in my house, I have it framed with these different levels of what the short term and what the long term is in the caring and giving area, which I believe was one of them. The other area is family goals. Right?
Spiritual,
and
there's
ethical
family.
goals.
There's family, caring and giving,
Goals.
and ethical and spiritual. That's the top of the Block O, the top of the Wheel of Life, and that really is who you are. How many touchdowns you make or how much money you make, that's what you do.
Yep.
There's a difference between who you are and what you do. Now, we didn't apologize for wanting to do. So on the bottom three on our Block O and our wheel was football. I knew that was our guy's favorite subject. That's okay. So what are your dreams? What are your goals? How are we going to do that? The health and physical conditioning and strength. And to me, they felt as if that was important because they knew it was important to football, but it gave us an opportunity to say, hey, that's what life's about. I don't care how much money you make.
Staying in good condition.
Yeah.
Watching out after your exercise and physical fitness.
Right.
For life.
You're going to perform better as Arias agencies or Youngstown State football. Better strength, conditioning, health, sleep, proper diet, keeping the wrong things out of your body, that exercise. That is, we wanted to plant those seeds. And remember, we were working with 18-year-olds, and they're focused. They had a lot of different focuses,
Oh, yeah.
But if you plant the seeds, and we used to tell our staff all the time, don't get mad that the seeds aren't sprouting right away, or that maybe they don't even sprout in the 4 years you have them. What's important is will you have given them those seeds to sprout for the rest of their lives, because as we talk all the time, when the tough times come, you're going to have a tremendous foundation to handle them, and the tough times are going to come.
Yeah. I remember asking you early on when I would bring my list of questions. And, I start out, one of the early on things I asked you, I know I asked because I remember the answer pretty clearly. How do you handle the stressful times? How do you handle when life brings you, stress? And so what I believe in and what I've learned and what I've, preach to others and try to develop other people to do is, mind, body, spirit. That's what we call it. It's in my mission statement of my business. So, mentally, when I heard some of the things outside of, one of the non-physical things was perspective, that you talked about building an offensive line and how grateful that we are to just be in a situation we're in where there's some kid that's really messed up somewhere. But I remember you saying, well, exercise, I'll do, this long of cardio, you know, in the morning, or I try to do this, and reading some scripture in so many words, you tell me mind, body, spirit,
Yeah.
which is, because I remember being all excited about it.
Going back to the fundamentals. You know, whenever we would have not as good a year as we would like, we would always go back to the fundamentals. And the fundamentals was the wheel of life. It was the block O of life. Sometimes you can get so excited about some of your goals and what you do that you rob time away from working on what you are and who you are. And I remember one time at Youngstown State, we had gone 4 straight years to the national championship. And I can't remember if I told you
We're
the story.
talking fundamentals. You're going
Yeah.
right up to talk about
Yeah.
fundamentals. I know. I'm with it.
And so we're rolling. Well, we graduate a lot of guys, and we got a young bunch coming back, and we don't have a good year. And so,
So 4 years in a row.
yep. And then boom.
Boom.
So sometimes, you know, coaches or bosses,
That could relate to
you know,
business,
yeah,
life.
they blame it
Winning.
on the players. They say, well, you know, what we wanted to do was go back and look internally and say, okay, what did we not do as we look back? Well, we took all of our practice schedules and we did a data analysis. And what happened during those 4 straight years of national championships, we played 15 games each year. And so you had to add little wrinkles to your game plan because you were playing so much and so forth. And we were stealing time away from individual period in practice of working on our fundamentals. So we found that the amount of minutes spent on just fundamentals of good football
Went down.
And
Okay.
we were starting to do more gingerbread. We're starting to do more gimmick
Outside the box.
outside.
Yeah.
And so after that year, we said, hey, look, that's on us because the practice schedule we put out, they do. And we were
weren't
not
working on the
developing the
fundamentals.
fundamentals. And so
Yep.
when adversity hits in life, in business, in whatever your dreams are, fundamentals are the key.
Get back to the fundamentals. So the fundamentals for life, when you would say, you know, you're dealing with stress, dealing with adversities. What part of the fundamentals for you? Because you can't speak for everybody else, or we've talked about our beliefs and how you don't think they're better or worse than anybody or force that upon anybody.
Right.
But for you, what is your fundamentals to get back to when you're going through tough times?
You know, I think an overriding reminder for me as I would go back to my fundamentals would be never losing sight of how grateful one needs to be. And because when it starts going the other way, you start blaming others, you blame God, you blame whatever, and you lose that gratitude. We called it the attitude of gratitude. And so always kind of resetting back, regardless of what the situation is.
Being grateful for what you do
Being
have.
grateful for all the blessings that you've had.
Mhm.
Then now it's time to dig into your fundamentals. In my mind, those spiritual, those moral, those ethical fundamentals of who you want to be, because again, nobody's taking their rings with them when they die, no one's taking their money with them, so forth, but you're taking your impact, you're taking, did you care for others, did you follow God's plan, were you obedient, you know, all of those things. So going back to the fundamentals spiritually, I can remember a couple different times, heck, several times, when it's some tough things going on. Saying, you know what, I'm going to go back and I'm going to study one of the Psalms each day. And I'm going to read and study and take in that Psalm each day. And what was mind-boggling to me, there's 148 Psalms or something crazy, and every day the Psalm that I studied over that 5-month period or whatever had everything to do with what was going on. And it grounded and it recentered and so forth. Also, I think
It's part of my daily scriptures, Proverbs and Psalms.
yeah, wisdom.
Mhm.
You know, wisdom. I mean, when times are tough, what do you need most? Wisdom as to how to handle the situation. And then, of course, when times are going tough, not eliminating that that time where you're helping others. Because, so often if you're up against it, you say, oh man, I got to go out and make more sales calls, I got to go out and watch more film, I got to go out, and what will I eliminate? I'll eliminate some time serving others, or I'll eliminate time with my family. Because who is the one that always takes the brunt of that lack of time? It's the family. I mean, there's, many of us preach that our faith and our family comes above our football or our business. Oftentimes, I've heard people say you can really tell what's important to someone if you check their calendar
and their checkbook.
So going back to those fundamentals, and there's a sense of peace to that. Does that mean you're going to go out and have a great sales year? No. Does that mean you're going to go out and have a great football year? No. But you're going to go out and have a great year, or a great month, or a great 6 months, and so. There's something liberating, there's something peaceful about being grateful regardless of the situation and working on those fundamentals. I had an athletic director, remember Joe Malmaser? He was the athletic director that hired me at Youngstown State.
Okay.
And I remember I was 32 years old, never been a head coach, and all that, and here I'm at YSU, and he called me in like my first day or two. He said, hey, look, I know you're going to have a lot of ideas and this and that. He says, you don't come and see me unless it has to do with blocking and tackling, unless it's fundamental to what's important to those kids, important to your program. You keep the fundamentals in mind, or don't come see me.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, I have, if we could switch gears a little bit, one of the other questions I had was, how do you, when you start serving and helping people, how do you learn to balance when to say no or that I can't? Because, I know your heart, and on a smaller scale, I can relate to some of the things and can only imagine in the direction that you get pulled. It's hard for me, to, you talk about the balance, and for me, it's when they say you put your, God, family, then whatever. I don't know if the hours, if I don't know if I'm doing it right or wrong, but I feel like I'm doing it right. I try to go back and say, what do I think my kids would give me A to F? What do I think my wife would give me A to F? I think for sure I'd be on the honor roll, with them. I don't know if I get all A's, but I think I got a couple B's in there, but some A's. But if I look at that schedule, to build something special, you may need to put in some 80-hour work weeks, 70-hour work weeks, where it's impossible to, especially in season. I can imagine you got Penn State, Michigan coming up. Ain't going to be not a grind in some way to prepare for that. And then you sleep 40, 50 hours, hopefully, so you only got 30 hours left. I don't know if the word balance does it right for people at sometimes. I think, they think of balance, they think of a weighted thing. That's how you balance. You put 50 pounds here, 50 pounds here. I don't know if you could put the same amount of hours in everything and move. So what would you speak to that as far as, finding a way to balance, but you'll never be able to, I don't think, balance the hours?
Yeah, I'm probably the worst person that could answer that question, because I'm 100 years old and still haven't figured that out. But I do think this. There's a vicious battle going on for your mind, and there is a vicious battle going on for your time. How you handle those battles is going to have everything to do with what you're going to be able to become, whether it's the husband you can become, or the father, or the friend, or the community servant, or the salesperson, or the coach. And I think that vicious battle is ongoing. I don't think it ever stops. I think people talk a lot about there's formulas for that. Okay, go block out one weekend a month, go block out whatever. I've tried that, but all of a sudden that blocked out day, one of my former players has got a crucial need. I'm probably going to lose that block on that day. you don't want to get in the habit of that. You do want to have certain standards that you try to set by. I've found it's a little bit easier to do it by the day. So if I can block out that first 2 hours of the morning before anything comes up, I've got a chance, you know, to work on some things that are beyond my professional desires. But I'm not sure there are any harder battles that you have than the ones for your mind and the one for your time.
Yep. And so, you know, we started out talking about saying no. You know, how are you able to gauge or how do you separate for somebody that's, say, getting busy and I'm trying to do it with business, I'm trying to do it with family, I'm trying to do it with service, and then you start having some success. And with the more success you have, the more people that are coming to pull something from you, whether it's money or
Sure,
wisdom or time or whatever. How do you do it?
You know, I think if you...
Because you can't say yes to everything.
No,
you can't.
no. And amazingly, I tell Ellen all the time, you know, for every one yes, I have 15 no's, but you know, what adds up are all the yeses. And so, yeah, there's times when I've done a better job with it than others. Remember when I first got to Ohio State, I remember talking with Lou Holtz and Joe Paterno. So they were kind of like, you know, decades ahead of me in terms of...
We call them the OGs.
Old guys?
OGs. No, not old guys. That's a
Okay.
good one, though.
Okay.
OGs, I think, for the most part, for young folks and, you know, street people.
Old
is
gray.
Original gangsters.
Oh, original gang. Okay, they're the
Original
OGs now. I like
so
that.
That's what
like
I reckon. You know, I say
Okay.
you're an OG.
OG, good. I thought you were calling
Old guys.
I thought you were calling me an old guy all along.
The players never taught you the OGs. All the
No.
players you had, I ain't
No.
buying it.
No, but and I remember both Lou and Joe asking me at different times. I said, how do you handle what everyone wants you to do? And I remember getting a couple cute stories from them. Bottom line was they said, it's rough. I mean, some months, weeks, years I handle it okay. Some I don't. I remember in 1989 or so, I called up Joe Paterno when I was at YSU, and I wanted him to speak at the coaches clinic we had. And I knew it was a long shot and so forth, but I'll never forget his secretary's response to me. I really didn't talk with him. She called me back and she said, Coach Paterno would love to help out, but you know, he thinks at this moment his team needs his total attention, and he's not taking any outside speaking this particular year. And that, you know, I've used that in my mind some. I haven't done great, but I remember Lou Holtz telling me when he was at Notre Dame, he said, you know, I tried to please everybody. I went everywhere, and you know, Notre Dame's an all over the world place.
Yeah.
And he said, by the end of it all, he said they just chewed me up. You know, I was just going every which way but up, and I wasn't doing as good a job with my students right there on campus. And he said, I came to the conclusion that when I go somewhere to speak or whatever, there's only one person happy. And he said, it's not me, because I know I've got some other work to do. And really, he said, it's not the audience, because they're going to forget within a day what I talked to them about. He said, the only guy happy is the guy that got me to come, because he goes around for the next 5 years saying, I got Lou Holtz to come to this thing.
Yeah.
And so, but, you know, it was his cute way of saying, hey, I haven't figured it out either. Coach Paterno was cute. I remember what he said. He said, oh, I got two things that I can help you with. Now remember, however old I was, 40-some-year-old at Ohio State, new at that level and
Yep.
all that. And he said,
And the battle is not, you know, because you fight so hard to stay humble. I mean, I think you and Jim Surace represent two people that I try to emulate when it comes to, as soon as people try to make you a big deal, you're just living, walking proof of how you focus on staying humble. And I know you try to do everything for the community and for everybody. So, you know, I know that has to be a hard battle, because when you do say no or you get a chance where you can't make it, I know you're thinking, man, I know these
Yeah.
people probably think, I don't want them to think that I don't
Yeah, right.
care, and I don't want that I lost my
Sure.
humility. You know, there
Right.
goes JT. He's over
Yeah.
the moon now.
Oh, he's
you
too
know.
big for us
That's
now.
it. Now I don't want to come to Youngstown or whatever.
But Coach Paterno said, first of all, make your fee too high. He said, sure, I'll be happy to come, but here's what it's going to cost. And then he laughed. And he said, the other one, though, that was even a little more pragmatic than that was I decided that if they wanted me to be there, they have to send a plane to get me. I speak before the event, before the dinner, and I'm back home in State College, Pennsylvania, in time to get rest so I can be
ready for the next
effective
day.
for my people,
Mm-hmm.
which, I never got to either of those. I never got to the high fees or the private plane speaking before dinner because, just think about it, it's the banquet for our economics club or whatever, or for our, our business college. And they say, well,
you're
you
speaking
can
at
just,
high schools.
yeah, you could just come and you can say hello and then leave. I think, well, these moms and dads there see their kid get an award, the kid's proud, he's done all this work. To me, it doesn't look right. And now, sometimes, if you have 3 things in an evening, like a college president does, sometimes you do have to bounce. But I don't like to make as a norm that I'm just going to come and say hello and be gone because, that's not what it's all about. But again, this topic, you need to find a better expert because I have not figured it out, but I'm battling.
You just like being great. It's exhausting to be great.
Well, but I want to be great at being a dad too. I want to be great at being a friend. I want to be so. I'm just grateful that I have that battle because there's a lot of people that's not a problem.
Truth.
They don't have that opportunity to to see if they can be as helpful, at least, or they haven't found it. But it is a tough one. And if any of the viewers out there or the listeners have the answer, man, send an email to YSU and give me the formula.
Yes, yes. So why don't we end on this? I think as a good, you try to serve people and help people, and as a head coach and as the president of a university, it's going to be impossible to make every player happy for playing time or what decisions that you make. And same, I would assume, with the running a university, that nobody's ever 100% happy. You got things that people don't agree with, the decisions that you make. How do you, we'll end on this, how do you balance, or how have you tried to balance the sense of, I want to care for people, serve people, and be nice to people, but to win can spread out over anything, to whether it's raising children or running something or being a leader or whatever. You're never going to be able to win and make decisions that are comfortable for people. And so how do you balance that? Because you've had to been able to balance making tough calls, tough decisions that people don't like, and balancing the heart of it all.
I think if you could just give every effort to be as inclusive as you can to having people aware of how the decision came to be, which means clear expectations, clear mission goals, and so forth. Lots of input throughout the course of it, and the reality that not everyone is first string, not everyone plays the role they want to play. But again, I'll go back to Coach Paterno, learning from afar with him. I remember reading one time, he said, the best indication of the morale of your team is the morale of the person on the team with the least perceived role. That last guy that might have a duplicate number, and he only gets to dress for the home games, and he goes to practice and no one knows his name.
Yes.
If he's being treated properly and he believes you care and you've done a good job of communicating what it's going to take to get in the game, what you need to do, and if you do your best with that and that person's morale is solid, feels good about being part of that group, chances are everyone else up the ladder has a chance to have the right kind of morale.
Good culture.
But I'll say this, your point about those decisions you have to make, that's probably the reason someone doesn't end up being a CEO forever, or the head coach forever, or a college president forever. In fact, if you look at major corporations or colleges, this July 2019, Dr. Michael Drake and I will be the most senior presidents of the public universities in the state of Ohio.
Wow.
I've only been there 5 years.
Wow.
Michael's only been there 5 years.
NFL is 3.5 years.
Yeah.
It's
If
the
that,
average lifespan for players, they
right,
say.
yeah.
Statistics
And
show.
head coaches now, I mean, shoot, they're firing them after 3 games. In the NBA, it's crazy. I can't keep track of who. So, you know, it's the reality is you do your best to have that morale of everyone, that everyone has got value, is cared about, is treated properly, has input, is important.
But you won't make everybody happy.
But still, the reality is nothing's forever.
Mm-hmm. So, give me an example. Let's say you're not a coaching example, a business or running a university. Somebody's not performing. You want to have that conversation of, you know, at some point you think you may need to put in the backup quarterback or draft somebody else. How do you start to, because you mentioned, well, you set clear expectations, and then the whole time you're bringing it up.
Constant evaluation.
Walk me through that.
To me, people ask all the
So
time.
you would define what you want and what's not
Here's
happening
what we
first.
expect. We're going to evaluate you constantly. We evaluated our players every day. We graded them every day.
Every day.
Every day. They had 1 of 5 grades. They either got an NC, which meant National Champion Day, BT, which meant Big Ten Champion Day, which is pretty good, A, which is just average. And if we want to be 6 and 5,
A was just average.
A was just average.
I like that.
Then we would have
Most people's A's are great. A's
Yeah,
that's just starting to be average
That's
for
right.
you. If you want to be great, we got to go 2 notches above an A.
That's right.
I like that.
And then the 4th one was an L, which was a losing day. Now, it didn't mean you were a loser. We used to talk a lot about you evaluate the performance, not the performer.
Not the person.
Right. But if you got an L, if we put you in, we're not going to win with that performance. And then the 5th one, the worst one, oh my gosh, you can't have it. It was an MB, maize and blue. You did so poorly. Your performance was so poor. You were helping them.
Helping Michigan win.
And
Oh,
Lord,
man.
Lord have mercy, we
Good
can't
Lord.
help Michigan.
I like it. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you for your time.
Appreciate
One
it.
of the OGs.
Oh, gangster.
Old and gray,
Original
say-
gangster.
the original gangster.
gangster.
Thanks
I
for
got
your
that
time.
down.